Good evening. We will call to order the Shakopee School Board meeting of September 14th. Sarah, would you please call the roll?
Hallett. Here. McKeon.
Here.
Romansky. Swanson.
Good evening.
Tucker. Here. And Bowerman.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. We are going to start with some exciting and fun good news about Shakopee School District. Now that the school's back in session, I think we're going to have more and more of these things. So we got some good stuff. Get comfortable because I got about a page to read here. So unless you want to do some sort of interpretation. No, not that. All right. First item, the Minnesota State Selection Committee for the Presidential Awards for Excellence in Math and Science Teaching has selected high school physics teacher Casey Rutherford as a 2015 Minnesota finalist for Teachers of Science. So congratulations, Casey. Item number 2, the accolades keep coming in for longtime Shakopee High School softball coach Neil Johnson. He is already in the Minnesota State High School Softball Hall of Fame, and now he has been selected to join the Minnesota State High School Coaches Association Hall of Fame. Coach Johnson has been the softball coach for about 40 years here in Shakopee and is the only head coach the program has ever had. So congratulations to Coach Johnson. We are also very proud, item number 3, of Madeline Rice, a senior at the high school who is among 16,000 National Merit Scholarship semifinalists. She will be competing for more than $32 million in scholarships. So good luck to Madeline. I'm sure her parents are pulling for that. Item number 4, following the release of the MMR data, which we're bated breath to hear more about tonight, all 4 of the district's Title I schools received recognition from the Minnesota Department of Education. Jackson Elementary was named a reward school for the 3rd consecutive year. Congrats. While Red Oak, Sweeney, and Eagle Creek were named celebration eligible schools. That's fantastic. So with school starting back, some updates from the buildings. The high school greeted 1,722 students on Tuesday, the highest enrollment yet. That's incredible. Our LINK program hosted and led an awesome transition program in the morning to welcome our newest students at the high school and linked them to each other, upperclassmen mentors, and to the school to make for an incredibly inclusive experience that sets our sophomores up for a successful year in high school career. It is a great program. My son was part of that, and it's a wonderful program. Principal Turi reports that the 6th graders at Pearson's are off to a great start. The students are becoming locker professionals and even finding their classrooms on time. How about that? They rolled out over 630 iPads this week at 2 different rollout nights. Good for them. Principal Jody, I never can pronounce Jody's last name, Coivisto, reports that Eagle Creek 4th grade students attended a Youth Frontiers Kindness Retreat at the Shakopee Community Center on Thursday, and it was a great way to kick off the school year. Principal Leonard reports that the SunPass open house was well attended, with many teachers reporting 100% families in attendance, which is also awesome to get parents there. And finally, a new full-day 4s pilot opened on September 9th with all seats full. Remember, we talked about that here as a board. Excited students and parents reported that the first week of class has been great. So we've covered high school to pre-K, the year's off to a great start. So congratulations to everybody who's made that possible happen. All right, we will do any visitors tonight who would like to speak to the board. Seeing none, we'll move on to consideration of the agenda as presented with any additions. Do we have any additions?
Sir, I don't have any additions.
No.
Okay. So I'll be looking for a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. We'll move on to consent. I'll get a motion to accept consent to put it on the table. Thank you.
Second.
Angela. Second, Matt. Thank you. Is there any discussion on consent? All right. All those in favor of accepting consent as is, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, consent passes. Any sequencing you prefer, Rod, tonight?
No, I think everyone here now is cabinet or members, so we're
Okay.
just following.
All right, Dave, you're batting leadoff. MMR, for the audience, MMR update. Dave Orlowski's going to give us an update on that program and the results.
We're going to cross our fingers that the,
No.
it's going to work.
Yes.
Uh,
There you go.
Okay,
It's coming.
It's kind
There you go.
okay, awesome. All right. Part of the reason I'm here, I think it was a good question that came up, and I'm gonna jump to what came out in the paper, and it's a good opportunity for me to talk about it as well. And I look at it and I think I can be overly critical of maybe what I say or how things come out when they're data related. And so I felt, when I looked at this and it said school official pleased overall, and then I looked at the first line, I thought, that doesn't sound exactly right to me. School official pleased overall, and just one school saw an increase in performance seemed a little incongruent to me, and I think I wasn't the only one who wondered about that. And so I'm gonna go through this and try to answer the question, is this possible? And you can tell me at the end whether it makes sense or not, and I'll trust your judgment on that, okay? So I'm gonna start as if you knew nothing about MMR, and that may or may not be true. So I'll start with MMR stands for Multiple Measurement Rating. And the MMR came into play as part of the waiver from No Child Left Behind. It was Minnesota's answer to, we don't just want this one measure, you're a failing school or you're not. We want to put something else in place that's maybe a more comprehensive analysis of where a school is at. And so really, I do think it's a good idea. And it's got these 4 pieces, okay? So proficiency, growth, achievement gap reduction, and graduation rate. And it's really hard to argue with any of those 4. They're all very important, and we might say critical measures if we were starting ourselves, that we would put them on there. Here's how it works. Elementary and middle schools can earn up to 75 points for their MMR, and the high school can earn, and Takata could earn up to 100 points. And all that you do then is take how many points you got divided by what was possible. That's your MMR. So even though it's reported as a number like 60, it really means you got 60% of the points, okay? So far, it's pretty good, okay?
It's possible. So.
It seems understandable. Okay, so here's the quick way to describe these, okay? This might be I'll say it, it's the for dummies way, okay? This is, you just want a proficiency, it would be what you guessed. If you try to get more people, more kids proficient, and you want them to get proficient, this is like No Child Left Behind, where there is a bar that you're aiming at that moves each year. It goes up. So these points become harder to attain, all right? Growth, you want kids to grow faster than what's predicted. Gap reduction, you want greater growth out of the groups that typically underperform, and you close the gap. And then graduation rate, you just want to increase it across the board. And just like with No Child Left Behind, all of these are looked at in terms of the subgroups as well, those typical 9 subgroups, the all group, English learners, special education, free and reduced lunch, and then our ethnic groups, okay? So there's 9 groups.
Dave, before you move on,
Yep.
maybe you're going to get to it. Who establishes the first 2 items, the target growth and the predicted growth that we're measured against?
So let me go to the next slide, which is the little more detailed version. And if you like this one and you don't like the next one, that's okay. Here's the more detailed. And these are even trimmed down as well, okay? What they really do, and to Reggie's point, it's not just the percentage of cells that made it, it's weighted based on the number of kids in each cell. And the idea was they started, say, at a baseline of 2013, and they said by 2017, we want the gap in proficiency between our subgroups to cut in half. So over that 4-year period, say one group was 40 points behind another, they would say we need you to cut it to 20 by 2017, and that is 5 points a year. So the target might have been here this year, up 5, up 5, up 5. So you can still be growing, but if you're not growing at a rate as fast as the target's changing, you lose MMR points, okay? So that's where that one comes. Growth, it's the same idea. If you grow, but you don't grow fast enough, that's also counted as a negative. And that is based on they say a kid started here in one grade, and they check and they analyze and see what that typical kid do the next year. So if I started at 450 and that kid wound up the next year, on average, all those kids were 555. If you were 554, you did not meet the predicted or expected growth. If you were 556, you did. So there is this target growth based on where you were each year. That's this one. Gap reduction takes, it rolls all the growth within a cell together. So if I took our black students and got their average growth, compares that to the average growth for all the white students in the state. And if they grew at a faster rate, they're deemed to have closed the gap. If they didn't, that's also negative. Okay? So they could grow, but if they don't grow fast enough, again, it doesn't work. And then graduation rate is against that 90% graduation target. Okay? Based on the size of the cells, if you're really into stats, there's some confidence interval things. So just like there was under No Child Left Behind. So it's not a hard 90. It can be a little different for each of the subgroups as well. Okay. So it's actually, it's quite complicated, and there's more stats behind it than this as well. But you got the idea, the 4 categories. You want to get better. Okay? Within that, Title I schools only can get these designations. So you might have wondered when we ticked off for good news, which it really is good news, that our 4 title schools all were recognized and SunPath wasn't. SunPath's MMR, if they had been a title school, would have been in the reward category as well. But since they're not a title school and none of our other schools are either, they're not eligible for these official designations. So I'm gonna, if you were 85th percentile or higher among title schools, you were reward, 60 to 84 your celebration, and then there's some categories below that provide support. Okay? Just for some No Child Left Behind context, those bottom categories, it used to be pure penalties. If you're in those bottom categories, you're actually supported by resources from the state level. So it's, even though it still doesn't feel good, it's with support now. We don't have anybody in those categories, but let me go back to the celebration eligible, because I want to use that as an example to give you a little more information on how that target moves. So I spoke with MDE, and they told me what the cut scores were to get each of these designations in 2014 and 2015. And I'm going to focus on elementary because that's where we have students. So in our title schools, in 2014, if you were your MMR was 62.3, you were celebration eligible. In 2015, it dropped 10 points, essentially. It's 52. And with the target moving, MDE told me this, and it seemed to make sense as well. There is downward pressure on these. So the threshold to get this recognition will be going down through 2017, or that targeting system changes. And if you bear with me, I'll show you how this it shows up in another place as well, okay? So you can see it dropped at middle, and at high school and middle, and I asked the question, why didn't high school drop as well? And it's because there are so few high schools that actually get title funds that it's harder to move those numbers, okay? All right, I'm gonna show you a couple examples here. This is how you can get anybody's MMR that you want. You could go to education.state.mn.us, go to the Minnesota report card, and you will get something, this is Sweeney's, that looks like this. And you'll see what their proficiency points out of 25 were, what their growth points were, what their achievement gap reduction was. They earned 44.84 divided by 75. Their MMR, 59.79, okay? So it's basically on the surface, it's that simple, okay? Here is what Sweeney was in 2014. Their MMR was 60.06. I don't know if you can see that right there. I wonder if this works.
It doesn't think on the TVs.
It doesn't. You can see the 60, right? Here's Sweeney in 2015. They actually went down. So as that reported, their MMR did go down. But if you also look, Sweeney is a celebration eligible school this year, so they're actually performing relatively higher. It's stronger performance than it was last year. So there's the two numbers, okay? Red Oak was the same way. Last year their MMR was 65.44 that you can see. This year it was 64. This year they're celebration eligible. Last year they were not. Okay, this is the statewide MMR results. Last year the average MMR for an elementary was about 60. This year it's about 54. Middle dropped, high school dropped, and that is a trend again that in talking to MDE they said we will most likely continue to see as well. Okay. This is one other piece that makes this more complicated, and I point this out just because I think it's important to know it's like many other things, they change a lot. So in 2012 they computed MMR. Then in 2013, where it says 2013 old, they computed it the same way, then changed the calculation and redid the MMRs in 2013, might have been even into 2014, where they redid them. They did the 2014 calculation the same way, but the score they actually reported for us in 2014 is an average of 2013 and 2014. And then 2015 was reported the same way again with those kind of nuances of some moving targets and such, okay? It happens I pulled a couple elementary schools and then a couple junior highs just in a couple districts where we are actually in our comparison list. So you can see even within the same district, there's like Chanhassen Elementary dropped 12, where in the same district somebody else went up about 2. Hopkins, they had a school that dropped quite a bit, and another one that stayed almost the same. So as you go in, if you choose to go into that report card or whatever, you're going to see some bouncing around like this as well, okay? All right. If you looked carefully at the commissioner's press release, and I did, and I read what she was, the article in the Trib as well, they don't even mention an MMR score. They talk about a different statistic. They talk about this percentage of schools that have all of their cells on track to meet the 2017 target. So I think there's some acknowledgement, not overtly, but that this is a complicated measure, and that maybe it's not as easy to throw out there and provide maybe benefit to the public that we were hoping it would, even though fundamentally it's a good idea, I think. So they reported that in the state, 43% of schools were hitting all their targets. So I decided to look at what Shakopee's were, because that's what they reported out on. And we had 67% of our schools. And in math, they said 41 in the state. We were at 44.
Davies, of schools, inclusive of non-Title I as well?
Yeah, this was everybody.
So it's all schools?
That was everybody.
Okay.
Yep. And then I did one thing further, and they didn't report it this way. I wondered what percentage of our cells that had, again, you need to have at least 20 kids in them as well, were we hitting the target in, and we were 83% in reading and the same 83% in math. And quite honestly, another reason why I think it's important to be here today to talk about this, I think we're going to keep getting better, and I've shown you other things, and I'll be back, I think next week for the learning session to share more of our data. There's tons of positive stuff happening, and I think it's going to keep going that way. You've also heard me say sometimes it's going to bounce, but when we draw a line, a trend through it, we want to see it going positive. I do think this is not going to do that. I think that this one's going to continue going down because of the way the system is set up. And so when it happens again, maybe you won't remember why, or if it happens again, but you'll have some background information that helps you understand why it's going that way, okay? And then just a couple final points, because I talked to the people at MDE a couple different times. They gave me just some key points. The calculation methods that I talked about changed in 2014. and they averaged results in 2013-14. Proficiency targets move. Growth targets are actually locked for the first time now. They needed to have 3 years worth of data for the MCA3 in each subject, and they didn't until this year. Gap reduction targets move each year based on how the comparison group does. So again, it's kind of that moving target piece. And for Shakopee, which is a little more diverse, they acknowledge that districts and schools that have more subgroups with that adequate cell size, they have to meet it in every cell and across subjects, the challenge is greater. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. To go back to the beginning, is it possible? Yeah, I think we did well. We certainly still have room to get better, but I think that that celebration eligible piece, we're showing you can actually have a lower MMR, but have higher performance, I think illustrates that point, okay?
Can you go back to the slide with the green, that one?
Nope.
So yeah, that slide.
Yep.
83%, 44, 53 of subgroups, and I think you said you didn't count a subgroup unless there was enough students to give critical mass.
Correct.
So, is there 9 categories, is that what you said?
Yes.
So it would be 9 cells theoretically per school, would be the total maximum number of cells that we could have?
Well, except that they don't count the all group in this measure. This is a different made-up measure by them, okay? There's actually only 7 that they would count per school,
Okay.
because they don't count the all group and they don't count the white group, because the white group is really the comparison
Right,
group.
right, that's true.
So, yeah.
Controls those things. But in this case, what I take away for me, and to validate your very first slides as possible, is that we're leading the state, we're ahead of the state, both in reading and math. And while we don't have a state measure for Shakopee overall, I see that to say better than 4 out of 5 of our groups are meeting their targets.
Correct.
Now, it'll be good to see that over time, to your point, but to me, that's a pretty positive message.
I think it is, and this is one of those that is just, it's complicated.
Yes.
And on the surface, and we talked about this, the numbers go down, it feels bad. We want them to go up. And so if you look at it there, I think it's, if you don't analyze further, it's hard to understand what's actually happening here. And I'll tell you, I've looked at it probably more closely than anybody, and I have to sit down and go through it again here, and it's 26 pages of formulas and explanation on the functional requirements of it. So you're welcome to this as well.
Dave, is there, between the 2 groups, I noticed it's 44 to 53 in both categories. Are the 9 groups that we missed the same in both reading and math, or are they scattered? I mean, is there any commonality where we just?
You know what, man, I'm not sure. That's a good question. Yeah. I can get that for you. I'll meet with that next week.
I have a question, and this is probably not a really good answer for this. So if this is MDE's process, where they basically change the metrics every year, how is any Joe average parent across the state of Minnesota able to figure out how good or bad any given school district is doing at any one time? If they don't have this beautiful document that you have and the time to go through it and to really understand it, is there any, for dummies, measurement that NDE puts across so you could just hit it and say, oh yeah, this is where we're at, or any sort of A+, B, whatever? I hate to do that, but
I think they've tried to do that before, where they gave letter grades, and I don't think that, I think it points to how complicated it really is. So I guess the short answer is that there isn't that thing, and I'll give you the answer I gave when I was a principal and people came to talk to me. It is, let's talk about, I don't want to be cliche either, but let's talk about your student and the opportunities they have and how they're growing and how they feel about going to school and the whole experience for them. And so I think you have to go down to that level. As a parent, I know as a board member, we want to look big picture, and The one that people seem to understand is proficiency, and even that can be more complicated than just a flat out number as well, but it's an understandable one. So, there.
Other questions? Thank you, Dave. You actually, to your credit, in all seriousness, that was about as good an understanding or explanation as you could possibly give on a very complex topic. And I'm sure there'll be more questions to follow, and maybe next week we can talk about this further, but that was very, very helpful.
Good, good, thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
These videos, so we could have this excerpt,
Yes.
right? On our website.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it's gonna get tons of hits.
You didn't say that, you just said put it.
Go viral.
I'll go that far.
It'll be viral somewhere.
All right, moving on, I think Dr. Bezick is gonna talk to us about a proposed change to the way we run student clubs.
Correct. Yes. We're in the middle of our policy review, so we've been looking at the 400s we approved, and we're right in the middle of updating the 500 series of policies that really affect, most of those are student-related policies directly. And at the last reading, we had the first reading of the 500 series, we actually removed a policy, or it's proposed to be removed, the student clubs policy. It was not a MSBA model policy, and it was actually in conflict with one of their policies on equal access. And we've also been looking, you know, I bring these clubs forward every once in a while, and sometimes it takes a while with 2 readings, and it seems like we've done a pretty good job of vetting them out. It seems like we're going through the motions sometimes. So I'm proposing that we revise how we do that. So the policy that is being, well, is right now in the process of being rescinded, that 430, we're suggesting basically becomes administrative procedure. And we're trying to, at the same time that we're doing policy revision, we're trying to firm up some of our procedures across the district and actually give them official status. We have procedures that we just have done because we've done them. So we're taking some of our ones that are coming up now, and we're actually running them by the cabinet and vetting them, and as a cabinet deciding that, doing 2 readings on them and saying, you know what, we're going to put our stamp of approval on this, much like there are board policies, we're going to look and do administrative procedures and give them a little more heft and have them stored somewhere so that we're not, you know, people don't think that we're winging it, that we actually do vet these out and we have them written down. So actually in this one we would like to take the bulk of what was policy 540 and turn it into an administrative procedure. So the procedure is one you're familiar with. It's the old policy with a few tweaks. And then what we would like to do is there's another form in there. So when somebody wants to propose a club, they used to have to look at the policy and then come back with these 6 main characteristics, and we've got those on the back of the procedure sheet. And then we've got a tracking sheet for how that will get carried out. And the first place to go when you want to start a club would be with the activities department. So that would be John Janke would you know, gather that information, which he does now, and he vets them out and makes sure that they have everything in place. And once he felt that it was at a place where it should be, or if he doesn't think it's there yet, he would give a sign off on that and indicate to the people you need more information or it's ready to go on the next level. That next level would be bringing it to myself as the assistant superintendent, and you know, I would look at it. If I thought it was ready to go, I would get that ready to go to the board packet. If I had some questions beyond, you know, I may take it to the cabinet to, you know, vet that out a little bit further so that I feel that it's ready to go to the board. And what we're suggesting is instead of the 2 readings, so sometimes kids wait a month before a board meeting, there's 2-3 months before we can get some of these things in place. If you're, you know, junior or senior, you've kind of shot half the year. So we're recommending that we would be able to do that at 1 meeting in the consent agenda. Since we've put these vetting procedures in place, we feel that very seldom have we had much feedback where we needed to change something, but this still gives the board the ability to do that. They could pull it off consent if they wanted. They could say, you know, we want more information. But this way it also gives us the ability to move things along a little more timely. So what I'm really asking is, I guess, for the board to accept this procedure
Do you need a motion for that? So moved.
Was there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, what questions or discussion do you have for Dr. Beasley's proposal?
I think it makes sense, I think it's logical, and it's expedient, hopefully we don't have, as good ideas come up, we don't have our schedule get in the way of kids getting involved in activities, so I think it's a good move.
As long as we are able to pull it off consent and discuss, ask questions, I'm comfortable.
I'm at the same mindset too.
I like the single reading. The downside of having it on consent is just that if it's something that we wanna give some accolades to, we don't really wanna pull it off consent just to say, hey, what a great opportunity, look forward to, you know, I'd almost rather have it just as a standing line item. It's on our regular agenda, but not consent, so we can offer positive comments, but still get it done in one meeting.
Does the, and pardon me, John, for not seeing it, does it actually stipulate that it would be on the consent? Because if it's, and if it doesn't say that.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that.
I don't think it does, so we can handle it any way we want to. The only other comment, and I made this to you ahead of the meeting, but for the benefit of the rest of the group, if you look under, I guess probably would go to 6C, where it's actually saying the approval process, conditional and/or final approval will be granted by district administration. I think we talked about
Yep,
inserting
adding
the
and
board
yep.
in there, so it's just in writing that the board actually gives final approval on all of these clubs.
Does,
Yeah.
and we've talked about that, Sarah's gonna change that.
And of course, it's on the sheet, the checklist, so it's understood, but we'll just make that modification. Any additional comments or questions? I'll just simply add that I agree. I think, I'll use Matt's word, if we can expedite the process and keep kids, clubs moving ahead and not be beholden to our, gee, we don't have a meeting until the next month or something. I think this is great, and thinking back to the clubs that we've seen come and go, we're gonna talk about 3 tonight. I really don't think we've had a whole lot of, there's been a few we've had some questions on, and that's fine, we'll still be able to do that.
Right.
But this seems to be a very good process that is different than our typical 2 readings, and seems very appropriate for that. So I'm very supportive of that. All right, with that, we'll move to a vote to accept the process as outlined, the procedure, I should say, as outlined with those slight modifications we talked about. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thanks, John, very much for that. Thank you. Very helpful. All right, get back to my agenda here. Item number 7.2, and I think Scott's coming forward to talk about the SEA contract.
Yeah, I wanna let the board know we have a ratified contract by our SEA group down at, they did their vote tonight, and had a great vote turnout for the contracts. We're excited for that to move forward. I also wanna thank our 2 board members who served on the personnel committee. A lot of evenings were put into the negotiation process. I appreciate your efforts for that. We have a good agreement with the SEA, and I encourage you to ask any questions that you may have regarding the settlement. We had some language changes. Most of the language changes dealt around leave language, trying to clean up, and some other languages just to tidy up and try to not have so much confusion over some old language. You may have had an opportunity to look at that. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those questions. And then the 2.5 and 2.5 on the salary schedule, and then co-curricular, which was a committee that was together. Scott, I know you served on that committee. A lot of evenings put in place to try to adjust the way we do our co-curriculars, extracurricular activities, and be more comparable with our other districts around us. And that was a big change in the contract. That will go into effect second year of the contract. And then we did a 5% increase to the benefit plan, which is what our insurance went up, was 5% since we went self-funded. Those are the major changes, and be happy to take any questions.
Not so much a question, but a comment. Mike and his staff, and Scott, you and your staff were instrumental in making sure that the process went well. going into the meetings, we don't have any problems with our teaching group looking at the numbers and feeling that they're valid. And same thing with the hard work on the language. It's a real tedious process. It'd be like listening to MMR results for consecutive meetings over and over. So it's definitely a hard job, and we appreciate it. And then we offered up to the teaching group, actually, it might go faster if myself and the board members would hop into certain meetings, and they very much wanted us there for the entirety. And so, to their credit as board members, both Angela and Matt were there for everything. And I think it's a deeper understanding and a deeper appreciation, I think, for process. And maybe I would ask, as part of that, Matt or Angela, do you care to say anything about process or about the experience?
Sure. The reason I signed up for the personnel committee was kind of to learn a little bit more. Didn't know that it was negotiation year when I put my hat in. So I definitely learned a lot this year, especially with reading all the language. And what a great group of people to work with. The union reps were fabulous.
They're fabulous people, good teachers.
And it was easy. I had heard a lot of horror stories from another meeting I had been at, and I mean, it was breeze. There was no issues whatsoever. They were great to work with. So for me, I learned a lot, and I had a greater appreciation for the union and what they have to do. So it was good.
And I would just say that the spirit of partnership is always evident in whether it involved teacher, principal, other groups. Everybody wants the same thing. I think Dale said it best when he summed up. A few years ago, it was we were a district trying to catch up to the growth and trying to get our test scores to be average, and just that was a goal. And now we've been able to really, I think Dale used the word, be an exemplar district, be the Lone Star that other districts are looking at, saying what's going so well for Shakopee. And it was great to hear that that's what our teachers who are in the classroom are expecting, and that dovetails very well with our stated strategy and our goals. And so it was truly a spirit of partnership in reaching our goals.
And maybe a summary for me, whenever you walk away from the table, not knowing you didn't get everything you wanted, but feeling like you were respected in the process and that you could stand up proud, and as a district stand up proud and say, these are our most valued part of the organization is the frontline teachers, and we were able to give them this, and then as teachers to stand up in front of 600 teachers and be able to say this is the best we could do, and we're good with it, we feel good, we feel valued and appreciated. And in this case, I think that's how we ended, is both parties knew there were some battles in there, because you can't always get everything you want, but both groups felt like we made a mark in where we needed to be as an organization, and I feel it's very fair.
I would agree. Other comments?
There was some committee work that was done throughout the year. Scott was involved in looking at how we compensated activities and extracurriculars, a lot of meetings and a lot of hard work that I think is a pretty progressive model. So I want to acknowledge that too, that again, a lot of good work was done.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we're contacted by other districts for the model that Scott worked on. At the end of the day, it's something that no one could ever explain, kind of like MMR.
You can explain the model.
Follow you more often.
And in all seriousness, there were a lot of people who've tried to do that for a long time, figure out how do you value one fall activity or sport compared to the other, and not acknowledging not all things are equal and giving them value. It's very, very hard to do without everyone getting mad about it. And so we were able to do that, and I'm really happy and proud to say that we're kind of I think we're leading the region on that. So
I've already been contacted on it, so the word's out there.
good.
Great, Mark.
Other comments? I have a couple. I want to thank everyone who's touched this, and I certainly benefit from the work by my fellow board members and all the meetings that you guys attend, and putting models in place. And so I thank you for that, but I thank all the people behind the scenes that work so hard. And we do have a wonderful relationship with our local union representatives, and that's not just by happenstance or luck. That's a cultivated relationship over time. So we thank them, and frankly, we hopefully meet them at the table, so to speak. So to your credit, Scott. I I want to thank you, Scott. I asked a couple questions. You know me, I like to read the fine print. And so I had several questions relative to the wording, and you did a great job at answering those. The other thing I wanted to mention, more for the benefit of the audience who might be watching, because I think it's important for people to understand that we do look at ourselves in many ways versus our quote-unquote comparators. And I want to read the comparator districts that are listed here. And that's Bloomington, Burnsville, Eden Prairie, Edina, Farmington, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Prior Lake, and Wayzata. I mean, that's exactly who, you know, in a vacuum, I would have said, well, these are the people I would think of. And this is saying that we are approaching our teachers group in a comparable way to other districts that a lot of people think very highly of. So I think that's to the credit of the process we go through and to the outcome. So I want to thank you for that, and I think people should appreciate that and that are watching this and maybe don't understand that. The making sauce is part of the recipe. So with that, you're looking for approval of the
yes.
of the agreement as presented. We had, I forget, you got a motion already?
Oh,
No.
Make that motion.
All right, well, I heard it first, all right, but I'll give you the second. There we go, there we go. Scott was wanting to get on the board here. He's tried 3 or 4 times now.
It's too slow.
And he's right, snooze you lose. Any additional discussion or comments on the contract?
Just a big thank you to everybody involved.
Yay.
A lot of work.
Excellent. All right, with that, all those in favor of approving the contract for the Shakopee Education Association for 2015 to 17, as we discussed, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. We have a contract.
Thank you.
There's Scott.
Yay.
All right, moving on. We are down to item 9.1. We're back to Dr. Bezic to actually present a few clubs.
Yeah, we've got 3 clubs on the docket tonight. I'm gonna group 2 of them together. The first 2 are the Shakopee High School Fishing Team and the Shakopee High School Mountain Bike Club. What you're starting to see is kids that are interested in activities want to represent their high school in those activities. We've recently done the trap shooting, we've done bowling, so there's an interest out there to want to be part, you know, even though you might not be a high school league activity, we want to compete as Shakopee High School. And there are a number of competitions out there that might not be high school league sanctioned, but the groups have put them together so that other high school teams can compete against each other. So these 2, very similar. If you look through, they've answered the 6 questions, and again, very similar to other clubs that we've approved in the past. And the third one is, again, we've got clubs somewhat like this, but Amnesty International is a recognized group out there, and there are a number of high schools that have clubs that you know, they look at human rights issues, and they bring attention to human rights issues. So they would like to start a club here at Shakopee and meet on campus and advertise that they're having those meetings. So those are the 3 that you had in your packet we're bringing forward. So I'd like to put out there that we have the improvements.
And then the intent tonight would be to follow our new process, which would be to approve them tonight, right? So let's get that on the table. We have a motion to.
Is it one motion or is it 2 or 3?
It's a good question. I'll suggest we can, unless there's a reason to separate, just do them all in one.
Okay, so move.
Okay, is there a second, Sean? Thank you. So discussion on questions and comments on the clubs.
I looked through all 3 of them. I have a passion point for creating opportunities for our kids. So I really, I'm glad that the students bring these forward. I'm glad that we can provide them for them. I do have a question though. Several years ago, in my research phase, one of my research phases, I was trying to determine how many varsity and school-related clubs and activities that Shakopee High School offered. And it was really hard to get that information. And so I'm wondering, do we have a document that I don't have a child in the high school yet. I have a 9th grader that's not in the high school yet. Do we have a document that we give to all of our high schoolers that say, these are all the activities that are offered in Shakopee, find a home?
You know what? If we don't, we will. I'm embarrassed to say that I do not know that, but I gotta believe that we do, because we have open houses, we advertise to our kids what we have out there, so I will follow up and I'll have that answer for you by, well, sooner than our next meeting, but, which is next week, but, I will find that out, where we advertise, because I know we do have a collection of the things that are out
And
there.
we have a course guide, could we have an activity guide?
We sure could.
If just, I had to look it up myself, so I will also bear that burden. This doesn't exactly hit it, but if you go to our activity website, you'll be able to see there's probably, looks like a dozen, 20, everything from drama club to travel club, student council, Spanish trips, they're listed here, and you can click on them to
You
take
say
you.
20? Because I know of 63 that we.
Yeah, this is clearly not inclusive because I'm looking for track shooting.
I mean, I know of 63, so.
That's probably
Yeah,
really good, yeah.
so there, it seems like there's a placeholder here, but I'm not sure, sure.
Seems like a very good task I could delegate to somebody who would get done in short order.
I just think it would be great because I'm not sure that my child next year would know that these existed. And I would like every child or every student coming in to know that these are the opportunities that await you.
Well, frankly, isn't that part of our strategic direction, is we, learn to better navigate and to show people the way. When you move here, it's very difficult to find how to have a kid who's been here for a long time. Imagine being new to the country, new to the community. We'd have a heck of a time. So good catch, good find.
I would like to make an addendum to Sean's comment and just ask that that be brought back to us once it's done, so that we know where it is and can see it. I think I would be very interested to see that comprehensive list.
Well,
So whenever it's done, just bring it back to us.
Question, John?
Yes.
I appreciate the mountain biking in their comment, they put all-inclusive. Can you tell me if the fishing is all-inclusive as well? Or do
Again,
you have to
I'm
have-
gonna assume that,
This one looks like it,
I didn't
there's,
ask that question per se, but.
this one looks like there's maybe Minnesota, like already leagues available in other schools. So then there would be rules, and so I'd be curious to know.
As a habit, we wouldn't, everything we would do, we would want to be inclusive. I mean, that's part of our guiding, I think, our guiding principles. So if there was ever a situation where you're finding something like that wasn't, I'd want parents or somebody to contact us, because that's, we strive to, we gotta make these things. open
Yeah,
to
I just like how
everybody.
the mountain bike people put it in there, because that makes me feel safe as a parent to go and reach out to that one. And this looks like an easy, maybe it's not easy, I don't want to fish, but seems like something anybody could do.
That might be something we put in our guidelines of people in there, putting forward their proposal, how they can, we can make it more inclusive, as, they're gonna have a better chance to get things approved and get more kids involved, so.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments? The only last comment I will make is that I think these are intended to be inclusive even beyond technical high school in many cases, which to me just reinforces the notion if we get this list together, your son in ninth grade could be
Could know.
participating in these, and someone, I see mountain biking is 7 to 12. So it just reinforces that that's gonna be a good idea to do. All right, with no additional discussion, we'll move to accept and approve the 3 clubs, fishing, Amnesty International, and mountain bike, as presented to us tonight. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We have 3 new clubs, that's great.
It just shocked me, thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Scott, I apologize, I probably could have kept you up here, I didn't look ahead to see that was coming next. So I think we're looking to also uphold another principle, if you will, of the Shakopee School District, so go ahead.
Correct. Going into this school year, we always have certain staffing FTEs that we budget and talk about. We try to do our best to project. We roll forward our student enrollment, but you can never project all the students that might move into Shakopee over the summer. Mike and I daily are projecting or looking at the numbers, monitoring the numbers, and fortunate, it's a good thing when we get more students. That's just a really good thing. And so we have 2 requests to increase our FTE that are beyond the budget Mike and I brought earlier in terms of our FTE allotment. One is to add a kindergarten section to Eagle Creek. We had several move-ins for kindergarten in Eagle Creek, and it's definitely necessary to add another section to keep within our class size targets. And then at SunPath, they're over, but it's 5th grade, and with trying to hit their core subject areas such as reading, math, and writing, by adding a .63, we're able to add extra section, pull out, work with them to keep the class sizes smaller for those core subjects. So that's a request for .63 to SunPath to help their class sizes in 5th grade.
That's our intention too, to be very conservative with those dollars, and so the reason you're at a 6.3 instead of a 2.0 here is we're just trying to get by and make it most bang for the buck. In years past, we may have come forward with a 2.0, but I think we've learned that in most of those cases we're going to see a little bit of peaks and valleys, and so this is a conservative approach, and it may not be the last one that we bring forward because there are kids still signing up today to go to school, and so this is where we're at today. And I want to reinforce what Scott said. When we get our budget, we take that very serious, and we don't go over that unless we ask the board to acknowledge that we're going over budget because of the extra FTEs for classroom reduction. So we would recommend approval of the 1.63 tonight, and then we do have another business meeting a week from tonight that may or may not see any additional FTEs depending on how many kids are signing up this week to go to school.
So one nice thing about the Welcome Center in this building, I think the last week of August, we were seeing sometimes 15, 16, 17 families in there, enrolling kids. And, so it's hard to project, but you do the best you can do.
It's a moving target. Questions for Scott relative to these additional headcount?
It's the right thing to do. Not even a question.
So then I'll take that as a motion to approve it. There you go, 2 on the board.
He sounded vacillating to me.
Yeah. I'll take that as a second.
That's a second.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion?
Maybe just in appreciation. I mean, we know that we watch our dollars, and we've done a great job with that, but as we talk to the principals, and I specifically went and talked to the classroom teachers affected, it means a lot to them that you're willing to do this move, and not all districts do this. So it's very much appreciated from the classroom teacher to the administrator to all of us too. So it's a big thank you for supporting the right things in classrooms.
And I will simply add that if Mary was able to be with us here tonight, in her tenure and in my 6 years roughly now on the board, class size has always remained a very preeminent, I see the head nod, you guys know this, preeminent objective at Shakopee, particularly at the elementary levels, which is where these 2 positions go. So I think I will echo Scott's comment, this is the right thing to do. So with that, let's move to a vote. All those in favor of approving these additional headcounts signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, you've got your headcount.
Thank you.
And then item number 10, Dr. Thompson's going to talk to us about the learning session scheduled for next Monday.
All right, so if you'll notice in front of you, the draft of the superintendent's report truly is a draft of an agenda. So if you have additional topics, what I would like to do is take liberty to work with Reggie and establish kind of a prioritized list. To that extent, though, these kind of are already prioritized. So let me just give you the kind of the once over from a mile high. First of all, plan on a long evening. 5 to 8:30 is what I put down for the school board learning session. It's going to take all of that, and quite frankly, I don't think we'll get done, but at least it helps us, you know, it's kind of like much longer than that, and we're kind of losing our focus anyway. So we have that as the learning session, and then 8:30 to 8:45 is that very short school board the business meeting, and the purpose basically is setting the levy, and if there's anything that comes out of here, gives us a chance to act. So the first topic is the ice arena update, and what we would want to talk about is the progress that the community and the city is making on ice arena, and plus I'd like us to weigh in on kind of, we have some ideas on what going rate is, but it's much easier for the city to be able to pull a trigger on what they need to do if we're locked in for a 10-year lease or a 15-year lease and things like that. It just makes everybody a little bit more comfortable with a pro forma. And so my intent here is going to be to try and get a number to the city of what we're comfortable with, and then that'll help them go forward. Because one thing is clear, this is a very important arena to our community. And as a district, we've done a great job of staying out of city business. One of the things that we have to be involved in city business, however, is they count on us for the pro forma. So this gives us a chance to set that. The second topic you can see is a discussion on our land that we own on 78 and 79 and potential partnerships with businesses or joint ventures. We have had significant conversations with the outdoor committee on what 78 and 79 can look at or look like, always with the first thing in mind: how does it impact our intramurals, how does it impact our sports boosters and associations as the clear forefront, but then are there other ways to drive economy into our restaurants and our hotels and things like that. And I think that that's part of just being a good community partner, is that we always think about those economic ways to better Shakopee. And so we have reached out to River South, and River South, for the most part, Canterbury, Mystic Lake, Valley Fair, and to a certain extent the Renaissance, but you know, Renaissance is such a short window, they really haven't been at the table, I guess is what I would say when we're visiting. And my hope is to be able to talk about this evening, what would a potential partnership look like? Both the ice arena and discussion on 78 and 79, by the way, I'll go to Bach, which is our regular subcommittee meeting. Then we'll put a white paper or a proposal together for this meeting. And then in there, we'll talk about what are the natural concerns we have with 78, 79, what are the things that lights the fire of passion and excitement, and then we'll start talking about some phone calls or some joint meetings with potential partnerships, because that's something that's bigger than the school district, and frankly, it falls outside of our scope of expertise. That's not what we do really well. So there are people who we can work with to help us hammer out solutions and partnerships, and so we'll count on and lean on them. The third thing is a 10-year plan, our deferred maintenance plan. There's some new legislation that helps us look at the whole big picture. Where is our prioritized list? And I would point out that you just have a dartboard right now from the previous list, but you all have to help us prioritize where to spend our deferred dollars. You have to take the revenue and determine which expenditure and financing routes you want to use, because there's some new avenues for that as well. And so I think that'll be important because of this adjustment, for us to, first of all, understand it, and then second of all, prioritize. We know there's a number of community wish lists that have come in, and that's your governance role, is to tell us which ones you want to pull the trigger on. We have the levy. That was number 4, and always important to understand everything that goes into that, and Mike's prepared to do that. The 5th topic, and you can see these continue to stay real heavy and meaty, is the discussion on the CFC. We have to look like the beauty of, as Reggie mentioned, the all-day 4 program and some of these others, is that we thought kind of when we moved out as a DO that we'd have all this space. Well, we did have all this space, but it's already gone. And so part of our responsibility is to have the vision out there ahead of ourselves so that we know where these kids will go. And so we need to talk about the capacity, the enrollment, and the programming. And we have some ideas on where we are at for programming now, but do you all want us to take a look and think about other ways we can program as well? We do have, and we've worked on projections for 16, 17, and beyond, so we'll share those with you. It's a very much moving target that we have, if of all the demographic work, that's the magic 8-ball kind of thing, but we can talk about some of that. Every couple years we hear about impending legislation about what are we going to do with the whole day 4s and so forth. So there might be some reasons that we consider and think about leasing space for these kids and these programs, so that's something we should talk about. And then lastly, the potential facility options. I think that, you know, the DO found out that for very, very much the bang for the buck and a very low lease, we were able to do something that's created kind of a synergy, if that's not too bad of an overused word. This synergy we have over here is just fantastic. I know that Goodwill left. I know that it used to be Joanne's, what was the grocery store?
County Market.
County Market. You know, there's still room here, and Dr. Bezick points out all the time, this is kind of, for the community, this is a kind of almost a wasteful space right now that not a lot of people see what's going on. We might be able to do some things here too with the little ones that might bring it alive more and reuse a community gem here, if you want to call it that, because it really is for us. This is a great site. And then last but not least, the topic everyone's waiting for, and that's more data and testing information by Dave and others to what, and I put it out there as needed or if needed. Really, this would be from a personal angle. As a board member, Dave does do, I like to tease him, but he does such a good job. If there is something though that hasn't been explained enough, or you want more information, these are the learning sessions where we get to do that. So it'd be to lay it out there. Hey, I'd like to know more about ACT testing or something like that. But I think there were a couple other items maybe out there that people at least wanted to get on Sarah's list of others. What other, do you have any other things out there that people would like to get on our list for at least the next month or two?
Well, I think that's a robust enough list for the next session. I guess I don't have anything urgent that needs to be discussed.
I have two others that I just want to get on the menu, so to
Okay.
speak. I don't think we'll be lucky to get through this.
Sure.
I'm not sure we will. One is something that we know has surfaced here recently. St. Francis has approached the district relative to a particular partnership. I think exposing the board to that opportunity would make sense because that could be timely.
Yeah.
And then the other one is something that I'll make a personal request, and this came up, I guess really last year, but we as a board probably should talk about how we're going to handle, I'll call it the one-off club support request, and I'm harkening back to the robotics club.
Right.
When they had just formed, they had an opportunity to go to a national competition, which we're thrilled that they did. They performed very well, but there was an enrollment fee. They hadn't done fundraising yet. I think we as a board should probably talk about how we're going to handle those, so we're doing it equitably across any group that comes to us. So probably not a difficult topic, but probably
Right.
one that maybe results in some homework by the administration to come back with a proposal, but let's get that on the menu.
Sounds good. Yeah, that sounds really good.
I've been collecting some thoughts on that.
Good.
Because we've been doing some things, and I think that's one of those where we don't have, where we can put a procedure together,
Yep.
because so it doesn't look like we're making it up as we go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Anything else though from the board?
It just made me think of two things, the Southwest Metro Intermediate.
Yeah, that's a good one. You know, they're looking at bringing forward to this group the idea of becoming an intermediate. So
Yes.
we do have a resolution that's prepackaged for us, but that would be another shorter item here maybe to bring up. Okay.
And then my second one is elections, as far as on here, off here.
Yes, so that's, you know, with the city changing the way that they're going to host elections, it does impact us. And so sometime, you know, the way I'm kind of thinking about it, we're getting mid-September, you know, if we could plan in October and November, you know, maybe after even the elections, take a look at, okay, here's the group of people now that are elected, how to go forward, how will that affect that? So that makes a ton of sense. Yeah. Could I make one comment on the St. Francis, so I make sure I don't, so I do that one just as much justice as the others. The St. Francis that Reggie's talking about is, St. Francis has a need in their PT, physical therapy department, for some additional square footage and space. In our indoor group, we've talked about different ways that we can find local partners. It's not a brand new model, it's newer to our area, where a hospital would have a connection to the school district, and in that connection, we would get some square footage in addition to what we normally would have to do different things with, you know, it would be the community too, not just our students. But then even things have come up in our meetings with St. Francis where they said, well, what if we put a family doc over there, and then because we're self-insured, part of, instead of going into the ER or instead of paying a copay or whatever, we could work a partnership where your employees can miss the copay, and now we're rewarding our people for going to the doctor at a, you know, like an on-site clinic. And if that doc happened to also be have a side area, or I'm not sure what the terminology is in sports medicine, now they can call it like an ortho or something like that. They can steer them to PT, and then they can, our kids who run all over the world to go to these appointments, stay right here in Shakopee, right at their own high school, get the physical therapy, get the, you know, whether they popped an ankle or had a concussion or whatever. And on the same token, Reggie's out golfing and he messes his back up, he as an adult can come in and use the service too. So we've talked about what do they need from a pro forma standpoint to make ends meet on their end. What do we need? Because if we're having additional square footage, someone's got to pay first dollar. Even if we loan it to ourselves, there's still first dollar there. So I would expect, yeah, we'll probably have to put that on here as we kind of move this along, because that impacts the design phase.
Does it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting though. It's a lot of great people in this community stepping up saying, I want to ride the wave of success that's going on in this community. It's really fun.
Any other additions? So there's no action to be taken, but I
No
want to
action.
thank you, Rod, for presenting sort of kind of the menu, and we can see where we're going. And it's been a while since we've had some of these, you know, deeper discussions. I think it's good we've got a whole plate looking forward. So
Great.
That's great. Thank you very much. All right, we're nearing the finish line. Is there anything relative to Assistant Superintendent's report, John, that you'd like to?
Nope, just a good opening week. Yeah, it's smooth from our standpoint.
Great. And Rod, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Committee reports that have transpired since our last meeting.
I would just say, I don't know if it's been the same on every committee, but I'm on the outside committee, and I don't know, 8th, 9th, 10th committee I've been part of in the district. And honestly, last week's meeting was almost as well attended as the first. Frankly, the only people who weren't there were our in-season coaches who were busy on the field at the time. And the community volunteers have just been fantastic. It's been inspiring to see people stick with it, even though they may have had ideas that the group didn't adopt. They stay and they're donating time. I don't know if Inside or Perform or Core has been the same way, but Outside has been fantastic.
Core has been great as well. There's been a lot of great discussion, good attendance as well. Except for maybe that Gopher game that happened, but otherwise, good attendance.
All right, any other comments?
Yeah, Inside's been, the discussions, there's such a great group of individuals on those committees. And I know that maybe the community at large hasn't heard all the work that's going into the meetings right now, and maybe we need to do a better job of getting that communicated. But there has been excellent work being done, and I'm really excited to see the end result, because I think we're getting it right.
I would agree, performs the same way, with the exception of the Gopher game the one night. People out. Otherwise, the only other thing I'll say is, these students that are gonna ultimately be the recipients and the folks that are gonna go through and use these facilities are so well positioned for future success. It's just about ridiculous. I'm super excited. I wanna be a Canadian.
I know.
I mean, I wanna be in these things.
I had a meeting with some parents last night and in the community about our schools. And the one thing I left with was, my only regret is that I do not have a kindergartner right now. Because
board from AMSD this morning on a topic that I think we're going to do a little bit more homework on, it sounds like, relative to dual credit courses and some changes that are happening relative to who can teach those from the Higher Learning Commission, I think is the accrediting body.
Yes.
And we think we're very well positioned. Let me make that clear. But I think in talking with Scott and Nancy, I know we're going to do some additional work to just understand how this may impact Minnesota or Shakopee. But if anybody's been paying attention to the news, the Strib had an article on it, the local TV stations have talked about it. So it's an interesting topic. But again, I would leave you with that our top line impressions is we're very well positioned. But if you read what I sent you, the two letters in particular are quite informative in terms of what is in play and how our legislature have even weighed in to say, we think you're going a little too far, meeting this commission in their accreditation process. So I call that to your attention.
And we're one of the top places in
Exactly.
the state in earning those credits. So.
CAS
Right.
in particular, I believe.
Right.
It's important to us, very important to us. But we will continue that programming. We're committed to that for sure. Okay, anything else? All right. I'm going to go around the horn very quickly. Around the horn, if you have anything, any topic, you have any reports, Angela?
I would just like to say that I had the opportunity to attend 3 open houses. One was CAPS, which was phenomenal and amazing. I was so excited afterwards I couldn't stand it anymore. And then I went to the high school open house, which was fun, and there was a ton of people. And Lucas is overly joyed to be a senior this year, and maybe the school is too. And then lastly, I attended a 3-year-old preschool open house, which was buzzing just as much as high school. So many people there, a lot of great energy with the all-day 4s and the 3-year-olds. So it's been exciting. And then I also want to just say thank you to all the staff that put in all the hard work for Back to Teacher Day. That was phenomenal. The speaker, Walter Bond, was fabulous. So that was a great day. That's it.
I will just paraphrase a quote from a friend of mine that he loves Facebook on Back to School Day because everybody's got cute, fun photos of their kids who, with the exception of my son, looked happy to be returning to school. But as opposed to the other stuff that comes on Facebook, political agendas and whatnot. So I found that refreshing. But otherwise, Back to School's been great, and I'm just excited for another school year to be here and the future in front of us.
Sarah? Okay, Angela? Mike? Nancy?
Just a couple of things. Our articulation meetings for us kick off this week, and course proposals are going to be due shortly after Thanksgiving break. So we'll be bringing you the next wave at your December meeting. But a lot of teachers are heavily engaged in this process. We have lots of groups, and so it makes the district office parking lot a lot more full on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Also, Young Scholar classroom lessons started this week, which is pretty exciting because that's the beginning of that program in terms of our talent development piece at K2. And I think that's about it. And I was going to address the dual credit piece. We'll look at it course by course. Because our primary partner has been the U, I think we'll show we're probably in pretty good shape, but we'll look because we agree with Reggie and the board that we have a long history of offering a rich amount of variety of CIS courses, and we will be continuing that.
Mr. MMR?
Just speaking of that topic, I'd be glad, I know Rod mentioned it was as needed on the agenda. If you would like more on MMR, I'd be glad to do that. But seriously related to that, I know you have a packed agenda that day. Some mechanism for letting me know what you want me to do, or if you want me to do something that day or a different day, that would be helpful, so I'm not wasting your time.
Yeah, so let's, if I may take executive privilege here, and the ball should be in our court to contact you to say, Dave, I'd like to hear more about this, and then from that, you'll know whether there is any in court, number one. And if there isn't, I think we can dispense with that on the agenda.
Right.
If there is, we'll have to figure out, does it fit? So the ball is in our 5 courts, if you will, to let you know. If you don't hear anything, assume nothing on the agenda. If you do, let me know, and then we'll figure out, Rod, does it fit? We may still ask for that information, but we'll just may delay it perhaps for.
Yeah, and, you know, just like Rod, don't take my feelings into account.
We don't.
Have we yet? Tonight's not an indication.
That's not a board policy.
All right, Scott?
I just want to say thank you to all of our staff here at Shakopee Public Schools, from our custodians, our kitchen service, food service workers, our paraprofessionals, to our teachers. It just takes all of them to welcome all the students back and have a great opening week. So my thanks goes out to all those staff members.
Well said. Mike?
You kind of stole my thunder there, but I wanted to thank especially the custodians. They put in a lot of extra work. I think somebody said maybe 95% of the inside was done and about 85 to 90% of the outside was done, so we really appreciate that. And the parking lots were striped and ready for school on Tuesday, so it was our contractors, all the people that put in. We have a lot of contractors doing a lot of extra work in Junior High West this year, new roof, new classrooms, and just a lot of people pulled a lot of things together in the last few weeks to get school started. Really appreciate their effort as well.
Well said. Please give them our thanks for the board, because those things don't just happen. Technology. Yes, yeah, all the tech, well, gosh, rolling out the, all right, I'll wait,
Yep.
I'll wait.
Just wait.
Anything else, John?
Okay.
Director Al. Let the floor show.
I was actually going to say that there are a 600 or so 8th graders tonight who are getting iPads. And I know almost all 680 of them, and they are very excited. And I know on Wednesday and Thursday, our 9th graders will be getting MacBooks, and I know that we have a very, very excited group of children right now and students who are ready to get to work on them. And I wanted to thank our technology department, because this cannot be an easy few weeks for them. So much appreciation to our technology department. I also want to quick say thank you to Scott. I wasn't on the personnel committee or working with the contract with the SEA, and he took some time to help me understand, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Let's echo the tech thing. I have a 6th grader at Pearson who was giddy about his iPad mini, and a 8th grader who will be giddy tonight, I have no doubt, getting hers. So as a board member, being a part of this conversation, having talked about this, and then actually seeing things physically come to, you know, your vision come to reality, it's a really satisfying feeling. So thank you to my colleagues and to everybody else that helped make it happen, because it feels really super cool as a parent and as a board member. So thank you, everybody.
And I was something to reinforce for the portion of the day I was at, back to school day for the staff, was phenomenal. I think that's, for me, a highlight. So I know a lot of effort and work goes into planning that, making it happen, making it fun, making it productive, of course. So I give my kudos starting with you, Brad, all throughout the organization that make that possible. It was flawless from my perspective. And again, I wasn't there for the full day, but it was great. Thank you. All right. So just to highlight the upcoming meetings, we have a learning session followed by a short business meeting next Monday, the 21st. We have a business meeting on October 12th. We have the election coming up on November 3rd, hopefully. We have board business meeting November 9th, and then a board learning session November 23rd. And I think one more, this December 14th is a board business meeting. With that, I will accept a motion for adjournment. Second. You really want to say, don't you? All those in
I'm the second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Very good.
I have a question. Did anybody see?
You're out of order.
No, the video that was played in the afternoon.
Which one?
We've been